Hello, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 4 with BlackICE, and we are doing Poland. Basically seeing how long we can survive. That is the goal of this series, and officially notify everyone, as I had a little rant the other day, BlackICE likes to update its mod a lot, and that's good, especially when they're fixing bugs. But because of the auto update features with Steam, we get incompatible versions. So what I've done is saved off, and I haven't done all the details of it, but saved off this current versions of their mods so that I know I can finish this even if they change it halfway through this episode. It won't reload while I have the game open, but so we can get through this and not have to restart it. But so I've replayed 36 and 37 because we ended just at the start of 38. So things will be different than when we last left the mock, though I made, I think, all of the same, I tried to make all of the same national focus decisions, and generally made what I thought were the best things. So, Poland seeks Baltic cooperation. There is no outcome for us that does not risk yet more oppression of the Polish people. Following Poland's distancing from the international community, Polish politicians have been pursuing an idea of a power between the seas. While the hope is to create an alliance stretching from the Baltic to the Black Sea, their stated priority remains to reinforce their position against the threatening influences of both the East and the West. To this end, Poland is seeking closer bonds with its neighbors in the Baltic. Okay, so we are trying to be the local power. The nation who had the best chance of any of this was Romania, but we go back to, if you want peace, prepare for war. And the mood, I don't know specifically in Poland or in Romania, but the mood, generally speaking, in the English-speaking world, because I've consumed lots of, well, newspaper articles, magazine articles, but more so movies and other newsreels at the time, was, we don't want war, so we disarm. That was very much the thoughts. Oh, that's cool, AKB, I'm interrupting here. Yeah, those are fun. So, the thought was, is armament, there's, and you can go back to, and I know I've talked about this before, many people don't know, because I do have an international audience here, but many people are familiar with the play, and they've made a few movies, at least in America they are, of Annie. It's about a little orphan girl. And the sort of savior, and she sort of saves him, was Daddy Warbucks. Well, I think on a lot of people that's just some sort of name that's lost on them. But at the time, it really meant something. Daddy Warbucks. Sort of a bad guy industrialist who made his fortune off the pain and suffering of other people because of, you know, making arms and munitions for World War I. And this was very much in the popular culture, popular ideas, that armaments equaled war was bad, so we must disarm. I think this very much led to World War II. I mean, we have the specifics over the Treaty of Versailles, and, you know, Germany is being oppressed, and they were, and hey, they lost the war, they're being oppressed. Austria is even being more oppressed. They've been broken, Austria-Hungarian Empire is being broken up into all kinds of little pieces. So nations who lost are being oppressed. And like I say, that's fine. You lose a war, you get oppressed. It just happens. And so those are sort of, you know, Hitler and those kinds of moves. But what allows Hitler to do what he did was the disarmament. And so that was very much the mood of the time. Now, so we have the situation of a rearming Germany, an arming Soviet Union. It never had a disarmament phase. It was revolution, civil war, maintain itself, powers. Yes, exactly, Django. So, and now, of course, a lot of German politicians before 1933 didn't want another war, knew another war would be disastrous for Germany. I watched the series, and it's very adult, but I would highly recommend it, Babylon Berlin. It really gives a sort of, 1929-ish sort of view of what's going on in Germany. And, there the German army wants to rearm because, hey, it's a weak, impotent force. And I wouldn't blame any army whose responsibility is defending its nation is important. Now, of course, the German army is also a militaristic army coming out of Prussia, so there's all kinds of historical baggage there as well. But, of course, you want to rearm. Of course, you want a sufficiently strong army because you have internal threats. People don't often think about this, but the army is there to deal with internal threats within the population. Now, does that mean it's there to suppress the population? No, because, hey, if you don't have an army, all it takes is, well, if you get 20% of your population that is radicalized in one fashion or another, militant enough, and willing to oppress the rest, they can take over. They can overthrow the police. They can do what they can do what they want if they don't have a force. So yeah, the army's there to protect the great mass of the populace from a potential, if you will, unconstitutional, depends on what constitution, each nation has its own, but overthrowing the government. So its army is an anti-internal force, though it sort of needs to not be a policing force, sort of a different sort of a role, but that. And Germany did not have a strong enough army to really, deal with its stuff internally. It was afraid of the SA particularly. So, if you look at it that way, the German army was too weak. It was too weak to defend it from its neighbors, which it was designed to be too weak to defend it from its neighbors, but that's also presuming that its neighbors are going to be a reasonable and rational country, which obviously we see in the Soviet Union they were not, and we see other outbreaks of various forms of political movements, right and left, that could threaten Germany. So I don't blame the German army for wanting to, rearm, remilitarize, and get to a reasonable size. But there were a lot of politicians, because they were afraid that if you break, they wanted Germany strong enough to do that, but they were afraid that if you break the Treaty of Versailles, you're going to get another war. And they were right. Hitler broke the Treaty of Versailles, and you got another war. Good one, Dan. Now, as Django's bringing up, the Swiss approach. Just one, and that may be incorrect because you get this stuff off the internet, but half the people in Switzerland, according to this one thing, own firearms. Not that there's, enough guns for half the population, but half the people in Switzerland own firearms. They also have the lowest shooting incidents, the lowest violent crime of all of Europe. Think about that, folks. Do guns in the populace's hands equal more gun violence? Well, you're more likely to be shot in Sweden or Norway than you are to be shot in Switzerland. Just a thought there. And yes, the Swiss, the total defense approach, they very much had that. And they were the fearsome small army that was, you mess with us, we're gonna fight. So it only comes late. I mean, the Poles were always worried about the Soviets. The Poles always maintained some level of armaments, but you can look at the ramping up of Polish armaments really sort of starting in 33, 37, you know, no, not 33, it's 36, 37, sorry. And so these nations are only now starting to build armaments industries, and it's just too late to catch up. But there's no reason why Poland, not that Poland itself is going to have enough armaments industries to challenge Germany, but there's no reason. And the one, now here's another one that did early on see this, was Czechoslovakia, and they did arm up but found themselves alone. So that's sort of setting the scenes of why these nations failed, in that they were looking at there was this general mood that war was just and I understand the people went through the trauma of World War I, and it was traumatic. Now World War II was more traumatic, but no one had yet experienced World War II, and you're coming out of the 18th and 19th centuries, which were periods of limited wars. You have to go back to the 17th century and the 30 Years' Wars and other similar sort of wars that were wars of devastation on the populace. You know, where the army where the army would march into your town and burn it down and kill most of the populace, because they were often over wars of religion in the 30 Years' War. So this was a war of peoples against peoples, as opposed to the 18th century. It was, oh, whose soldiers are marching through our town or village today, and I hope they don't steal all the chickens. But generally speaking, they were well behaved. You know, and it could be Napoleon's army, could be you know, any British or what, you know, because British army marched up and down the Rhine here during you know, Marlborough's era. So, you know, could be that. And so that was that's what Europe had experienced for a long time. Okay, well, let's get to playing the game. Enough sort of history. Okay, so we have a new national focus, and we just need to select. And I'm trying to push here, get this Treaty of Lithuania before it gets too late. So we're going to do that. Now you'll also notice I have a nearly full government here. Those of you who are watching my recent BlackICE Germany series, and Hitler and etc. was having not enough political power. Well, with this newest version, at least compared to even this last version, they're showering me with political power for Poland. I haven't played any other countries, but this new version, but we are getting plenty of political power. Okay, pull this up just a little bit and get going. Yeah. You can see my defensive arrangements here. Sort of, I haven't, unlike the last time, I haven't built any fortifications yet, but we're going to start that once we get more. Well, might as well start planting them now. Pillbox defense, much cheaper. We can hope. To build a line of those. I've been wanting to, as best we can, deal with some of this equipment shortages. I'm thinking about, but I'm sort of watching what Germany's doing up here. Notice Lithuania, though, they don't have it very well equipped. They do have a armor unit. Okay, Jiangxi has capitulated. Japanese are just cleaning them up. And we have more political power. Okay, we could go to early mobilization. ever. World tension is not enough. Okay, yeah. I think we want to do that well. Improved and machine tools. I just can't help myself with the infrastructure type or the production type text. We still aren't even producing those at this time. Yeah. No, it needs more production. Way back off here. See if they decide that this isn't the front that you need to hold. I wouldn't mind trying to hold this river here. But trying to hold this border is just sort of silly. Factory. How are we doing for uniforms currently? We've got plenty of uniforms. Okay, so let's go down to 1 in production of uniforms. Well, we could throw a factory at mountain artillery. And some garrison equipment. Don't really know exactly what garrison equipment is different than regular equipment, but yeah, adds this playthrough at least. I'm going to try to resist from attack from both sides, but that is not a bad survival strategy if you want to become a Soviet puppet. Armor, we have very little armor, so we'll do air superiority. Alright, 8 positions. Okay, we can either do breakthrough or defense. We're going to do defense. Now, machine guns in Poland. Let's see. Hello, Arno. I don't know if it's... I don't know how practical that is. Theoretically, yes, but I quite honestly don't know how practical. I think it's sort of, to a degree, what we're trying out here. Poland made some very smart moves for machine guns. They went with the Browning machine gun, both the BAR and the sort of I don't know exactly in detail, but it was somewhere between a 1917 and a 1919 that they sort of worked on. I think if I remember correctly, it was the sort of, not the BAR type that they never paid royalties on. They just sort of copied it and made their version of it. So they did that, and those were all locally produced. So they did have that armaments industry. Okay, so treaty with Lithuania. Good. Now, Baltic Alliance. This is what we're trying to deal with. Prague Declaration. Okay. Romanian. Okay, we're going to do the Prague Declaration. Hopefully before... Do we... Okay, this part of Czechoslovakia had a significant Polish population. I don't really know whether if it was a local majority or a big minority, but Poland wanted it. So Poland, for all of, its, first to fight and whatnot, standing up to the Nazis, it was complicit in the second, or the Vienna Awards. That's the first of Vienna Awards, the Sudetenland. But once they start really carving up Czechoslovakia, it's in on just for getting this. And I understand you wanting all the people of Polish ethnicity in your country, but hey, isn't that sort of what National Socialism is? All of the German ethnicities, anywhere inside of Germany. But so that they sort of betrayed Czechoslovakia to get this, instead of having a strong stance and alliance with this. And I just, I don't know, how do you, I guess I can't put myself into their situation well enough to think, this little bit of territory, when you're this big of a country, is enough of a conflict to not stand up to two greater, both Soviet and German powers wanting to gobble you up. So I just don't get this. Now, why would Czechoslovakia not be willing to give up this little bit of country? Well, part of it you can see here. But it's mountainous. You get over this side of the mountains, you now have a, it's harder to defend. It's a narrower bit of a country. So it's a strategical defense reason that if you're going to be Czechoslovakia, not just Czechia or Slovakia, there's, a good reason to want to hold on to this piece of territory. So I see the Czechs trying to hold on to their territory much more reasonably than I see the situation. Yeah, you can say it's just nationalism, but I just don't see why that they wouldn't be willing to put it aside to defend against a greater threat, is, I guess. But that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go down this path. I want to get this before the Sudetenland situation comes in. Okay, Lithuania joins the Medizamors, acknowledging the need for unity against the threats surrounding our countries on every side. Antana Semonota today announced to the world that Lithuania has entered a treaty with Poland for the sake of mutual safety. Okay, so we now have Lithuanian allies. Yeah, I know. Please go fascist or communist. Well, we're building our own Yeah, well, you're right there. Who do they see as the greater threat? Ads. But Poland saw very much, and you can look at, and I've been recently digging up a bunch of posters and things for this series to make, you know, the thumbnail images. They have a lot of iconography dealing with defense against the Soviets, and, you know, in the 1920s, fairly early in the 1920s. And so that they definitely, from, shall we say, 1920 to 1930, before the rise of the Nazis, saw the Soviet Union as the greatest active threat, but they also realized that this was a threat. But then Czechoslovakia, hey, you've got the whole Czech arms industry, which was basically the previous Austrian imperial arms industry. Much of it was in what becomes Czechoslovakia. So Skoda and CZ and other companies, as a very strong potential source for arms, where Germany has been banned from making many types of arms, and you're very unsure about them. So even though Czechoslovakia doesn't share a border with the Soviet Union, if the Soviet Union is retaking some or potentially all of Poland, they're likely to eventually share a border. So I just see that no matter who the big threat is, because obviously the threat for Poland isn't America, isn't even Turkey, isn't Australia, you know, it's going to be somebody in this part of the world. And Austro-Hungary is no longer anywhere near being a fact outside of fevered dreams of Hearts of Iron 4 developers. Restore the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The Austrians really didn't want to do it. The Hungarians really didn't want to do it. They both wanted to have their own countries. It really wasn't a realistic thing. So it comes down to Germany or the Soviet Union are their real threats, other than where the minor the border is. Yes, we are heading down that Commonwealth for Lithuania, or with Poland and Lithuania now. You're right. That's sort of my point, is that they were very short-sighted. So now we're going to move back onto the border here with these guys, our mobile troops. Which, I mean, if we're going to be facing a strong Germany up here, which we very well might, they're going to run back to our defensive circle. The Anschluss of Austria. Okay, so Germany is growing bigger. Just outflanked Czechoslovakia. You might be able to hold this border here around here, but you aren't going to hold here. As well, it's the limited border. This becomes a benefit because it is a strategic depth rear that can support manpower, factories, whatever, food. But once you're coming into here, it's now just a place to be cut off and cut in two. Yes, we're going to try to get Romania in as well too. But I think the earliest one now that we're focused on is Czechoslovakia. If we can get Czechoslovakia into this alliance, it could mean a good benefit for us. Most industries. Well, we're not really building any more military factories at the moment, so I don't think going here is going to really help us out much. Because actually right now it'll hurt our production efficiency. So we're going to keep mostly a free economy. Average taxes sounds like a plan. Regulated press. Yeah, we're good. What's the main cost here? Needs more consumer factory goods, but okay, we'll do that. Hello, Darth Thief. Good to see you again. Yeah, soon. I've been ignoring that. It needs to be done. Thanks for the reminder. I am going to update Tanganyika for Hoi 4 soon. How soon? Not sure. Just work and other things. Let's speed this up a bit. Not enough is happening. You're currently going through and building a defensive circle here. So. Okay, the magazine fort raid out in Dublin. The IRA are acting up. Not a real concern for us Polish. As you can see, we're being showered with political power. Naval Chief, Old Guard, political gain, naval experience, or naval speed. I don't need any more political power, really, but I see this is Gdynia was a port up here, made for the Polish Navy because Danzig, as many of you know, was really the free city of Danzig, mostly German run, or not Germany run, but German locals run. Just a few institutions were in Polish hands, and at least officially, the Polish Navy was not supposed to use it as a port, so they built Gdynia up here. But Gdansk had major shipbuilding facilities in there as well that could, and I don't know who built the Polish Navy. I don't know if they built it themselves or whatnot. So we've got this small flotilla. Let's one of our destroyers done. Well, Interior Ministry, stability, growth, resistance, growth. We don't need that. Let's see if we go to high standards. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, that's cool. Germany had been one of the major Baltic ship producers. A lot of the Russian Navy at some point was German produced. What I'm thinking of doing is, once we get near to a likely war, moving these outside of the Baltic if I can, before the war starts, so that they can move to Allied ports in Britain. Oh, okay. That's interesting, Arna. Yeah, I know that Polen and Jing, that the Dutch were particularly good at, for their size at least, at building submarines. They were developing the snorkel, which was a very smart thing. So yeah, there. Japan is going to kick China's butt. Okay, the Prague Declaration. Okay, so we've got the Prague Declaration. Okay. Czechoslovakia accepts the proposal. We managed to forget past disputes and sign our guarantees of independence. It is a huge success for Polish diplomacy, but also a chance for Czechoslovakia. In their country, they started raising groups with their main target to cooperate with Poland. Great. So, offer of guarantee accepted. Great. Hungary renounces the Treaty of Trianon, which is basically the treaty that ends World War I for Hungary and sets up the boundaries. So they are going to be remilitarizing. Well, like I say, there were a lot of ethnic Germans, former peoples in the German Empire, including there were lots of people that spoke Polish in the former German Empire that were living in the free city of Danzig. So I don't know how much they cooperated with it. I have an event in TRE for sort of improving the production docks for Danzig. It's basically sort of taking over the existing docks and setting them up for German use for production. I don't know. I don't know of another good. Oh, I don't know. You gotta ask Arno. I don't know how much because Germany, I do know, particularly with Switzerland, it was the SIG was a Swiss arms manufacturer that basically a German company, I forget who exactly, bought it to be able to develop and produce arms in Switzerland because they couldn't themselves. So I know that Germany was looking for, because Austria was under, I don't know how similar, but similar arms production restrictions. So like the MP35, the Soltrum, was a SIG production basically, but through German engineers working in Switzerland. So Germany was doing a fair amount of that kind of stuff. Oh yes, unlike what normally happens, I think the three main destroyers or whatever of the Polish Navy escape, and I also think their submarines may have escaped to Britain. Indian National Congress triumphs in provincial elections. In recent local elections, the Indian National Congress has achieved an overwhelming majority for their platform of slow and ordered transition to local government and dominion status in the future. It appears that Indians have rejected the more radical policies advocated by Gandhi, who has argued for a total break with Britain and absolute home rule as soon as possible. Yes, I'm sure Ads doesn't like this one. Panzer IV? They got a Panzer IV unit up here? Wow. They're already producing Panzer IVs. That's going. I do have my fortifications master, right? Yeah, land fort build speed plus 15. How are we doing there? Okay, no. Heavy machine guns. So we're now building in loads. It's just. Now, we have heavy machine guns. Let's quickly look here. We have enough mountain artillery. So we're going to actually, I hate doing this, but we're going to stop production. Cancel production line, yes. And we're going to come over here and start producing heavy machine guns. Garrison equipment. How are we doing for garrison equipment? We still need more. We have a few garrison units, haven't swapped them out. But what we're going to do is go down to just 1, go to 2. There we go. Chandra Boss, yeah. An unreasonable extremist? Might that be the term for him? I don't know. In that term, I know you're a supporter of his, but 37. I don't know that we're going to be building or researching our building, so. I like to do naval bombers, as you know, but I don't know if we have enough time. Well, we could develop a better fighter. I'm mostly building fighters to protect ourselves. Prepared defense, okay, good. That's what we're doing. We're doing prepared defense. Okay, infiltration, breakthroughs. Yeah, I guess it's just worth using a slot on all of this. Now, Romania at this time, in 38, was very much looking to get an alliance with Britain and France. Mostly with France, but very much acknowledging that they needed British help as well. But both of those nations, and I would say realistically knew, you can look at the chaos in France, they weren't going to fight to defend Romania. Whether it's from the Soviets, because especially in 38, it's looking more from the Soviets. Hungary, yes, it wants to get some, as it sees it, territory back. And Bulgaria. But those aren't, you know, sure they're a concern, and sure it's pushing both of those powers into the German sphere, but they were looking at mainly the Soviets. And you know, the French populace wasn't willing to fight over France, so basically they got told no. So we're going to see if we can create an alliance with them. Well, timing is everything, ads. Timing is everything. India got its independence the way it did because of World War I and World War II, the exhaustion of the British Empire and such. So had you started pushing earlier, I don't think it would have been as successful. Hello, Toxic Mike 1. Good to see you. And Coupe de Mode, the thing that America doesn't care about, FIFA, the World Cup. We have no concern, care in the world that it even exists. I know that may offend the rest of you. Not that we dislike it, we just don't care. So, Italy retained the championship. Cool for them. Okay, we're going to end the episode, not the stream. You guys on Twitch, stay right where you are. We're going to end the episode here. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. I want to, hey, if you haven't already, please follow me over on Twitch or subscribe on YouTube. And, of course, please post questions, comments, suggestions, corrections. Love hearing from you. See you next time for another episode of Hearts of Iron.